They met in the most ordinary way, a traffic accident on a slow Tuesday morning in Victoria Island. Dammy had been sipping his coffee behind the wheel, radio humming low, when Naya's car clipped his bumper trying to dodge a kiki. No one was hurt, but her flustered apology, the way she held her phone like a shield, and the quiet confidence beneath her embarrassment, all of it stayed with him. They exchanged numbers for insurance reasons. But the messages that followed drifted far from panel beaters and repair costs. Dammy asked if her wrist had stopped trembling. Naya sent a voice note laughing at how she still hated mornings in Lagos roads. Then a dinner happened. Then a second, they both had a lot going for them. Naya, a sought-after brand consultant, Dammy, the founder of a rising architectural firm. But with each other, they didn't need to impress. They just needed to be understood. Naya once said she liked the silence between them, that it didn't feel heavy. Dammy once admitted he liked how she never tried to rescue his bad moods, just waited them out with patience. They fell in love slowly, then all at once. One night, on a rainy balcony, she kissed him mid-argument. Another night, he whispered that he didn't want to go a day without knowing where she was. They made plans, he met her best friend, she met his team. They started planning on meeting each other's parents. Naya's parents lived abroad but Dammy's mother was in the country. By their 10th month together, Dammy asked her to move in. Naya cried, not because she was unsure, but because she'd never been so certain of anything and it scared her. This feels like the start of the rest of our lives, she whispered. He kissed her forehead. That's exactly what it is. But some beginnings are shaped by the past. And some stories wait, quietly, for the perfect moment to shatter everything. Dammy had never asked much about his father. Not because he wasn't curious, but because his mother always grew quiet when the subject came up, like it touched something raw she didn't know how to cover up. Somebody I loved, she once said, folding his baby clothes into a memory box. That's all. He left it there. Years passed, and Dammy built his own life. University, his own firm. Success filled the silence where family once stood. Then came Naya. The kind of woman who made him forget he ever felt alone. Warm, grounded, beautiful in a way that didn't try too hard. He loved how her eyes narrowed when she laughed. He loved that she listened. One Saturday morning, they were at her place, splitting toasted bread and pawpaw slices over coffee. She pulled out an album to show him baby pictures, her in school uniforms, a crooked front tooth, her father holding her up on his shoulders near a mango tree. That's your dad? He asked. Yeah. Cole Williams. She said it casually, cutting into another piece of fruit, but the name didn't land casually. It lodged somewhere behind his ribs. Cole. He tried to smile. You look a lot like him. She shrugged. I know. Same ears. That night, back in his apartment, Dammy couldn't sleep. He kept repeating the name silently. Cole Williams. Cole Williams, the name sounded so familiar. He dug out the old shoe box in his closet, the one his mother once told him to throw away. But he never did. Inside were faded photos, 2 letters, and a birthday card he couldn't remember reading. He found it near the bottom, a photo of his mother, younger, eyes bright. Beside her, a man. Tall. Brown-skinned. Wearing a faint smile. Written on the back in faded pen, Me and Cole, December, 1992, Dammy sat down. His breath was steady, but his chest felt hollowed out. No. No, it couldn't be, but the face. The name. The timeline. Everything started to fall into place like glass cracking from the center. He hadn't called his mother in a while. It wasn't deliberate, just life crowding in, too many deadlines, too many dinners that ended with him watching Naya sleep while his thoughts ran in circles. But that night, he needed to hear her voice. She answered on the 3rd ring. Dammy? Yeah. Sorry it's late. No, I was up. A pause. You sound tired. There was a silence between them. Mom, he began, you remember the guy you told me about? The one you loved. Before I was born. She didn't answer immediately. I remember, she said eventually. Her voice sounded smaller. You said his name was Cole. Another pause. Yes. Dammy rubbed his temple. He was sitting on the floor now. Back against the couch, lights off. Did you ever hear from him again? No. She sighed, long and quiet. He left. Moved abroad after we broke up. I tried writing. But letters came back unopened. I had no way to reach him. So he never knew you were pregnant? No. I don't think he even knew I missed my period. Dammy swallowed. His throat felt tight. And you're sure he's my father? Her voice turned soft. Yes, Dammy. I'm sure. He stared at the dark, the words settling over him like dust. There was a part of him that wanted to laugh, because how ridiculous was this? Out of all the women in the city. Out of all the men in the world. He had found his way to her. The daughter of the man who was his father. Mom, he said, after a while, I met someone. Oh. Her voice lifted, hopeful. You've never told me that before. She's amazing. I'm happy for you. Another beat, she's Cole's daughter. There was silence. Long dense, then, what did you say? He could hear her breathing, slow and shallow on the other end of the line. She's his daughter. Her name's Naya. Oh God, his mother whispered. Dammy felt his chest splinter. The days that followed were hollowed out. Naya still called. Still sent voice notes, laughing about something she heard on the radio or wondering if he'd come over for dinner. Dammy answered when he could. When his voice didn't betray him, I'm just swamped, he said once, when she asked if he was okay. Client deadlines. Sorry, babe. She believed him. Why wouldn't she? But he was lying. Not about the work, but about everything else. The silence in his apartment was deafening. The old photo now sat on his desk, staring at him. His mother hadn't called back since that night. Maybe she was trying to find the right words. Maybe there weren't any. One evening, he drove to Naya's house. Parked outside, and couldn't bring himself to go in. She called 5 minutes later. You outside? No, he lied. Still at the office. Oh, she said, a little softness in her voice. Okay. I miss you. He closed his eyes. I know. I miss you too. When he finally went inside his own apartment that night, the first thing he saw was her earring on the hallway table, forgotten from a weekend she stayed over. He picked it up. Held it like something fragile, and for the first time in a very long time, he cried, not loudly. Not theatrically. Just quietly, shoulders hunched in a dark kitchen, letting the ache rise up and spill over, because if it was true. If the math lined up. If the name wasn't just a coincidence, then loving her wasn't just wrong. It was impossible, because he couldn't be in love with his sister, and yet, how do you unlove someone like Naya? How do you turn away from the one person who made your world feel less jagged? He didn't sleep that night. At dawn, he opened his laptop and began researching DNA tests, not out of hope. Just to know for sure, he needed the truth. Even if it tore him apart. By morning, he couldn't delay it anymore. He sent a text, come over. I need to tell you something. Please. She replied within minutes, on my way. Now, she was sitting on his couch, legs curled beneath her, wearing one of his old sweatshirts like it still meant something. Like they weren't about to tear everything apart. Naya smiled, tentative. You're scaring me. Is everything okay? He sat across from her. Not beside her. That was her first real sign something was wrong. Dammy didn't speak at first. He rubbed his palms together. Cleared his throat. Then he looked up. I found out something, he said. About my family. She blinked. Okay. My mom. When she was in university. She was in a relationship. Serious one. They broke up. She found out she was pregnant after he left the country. She never told him. He never knew I existed. Naya noted, her body still. He pushed forward. His name was Cole Williams. Silence fell like a dropped glass. She didn't speak. Didn't blink. Just stared. My father, she whispered. Cole is my father. Dammy nodded, his throat tight. I didn't know, he said. I swear to you, Naya, I didn't know. Not until I found this old journal of hers. She wrote about him. About how she tried to find him and couldn't. I confronted her. She admitted everything. No. She stood, backing away like something had caught fire. No. Dammy. That can't be. No. This is a mistake. I'm praying it is, he said, voice cracking. But I had to tell you. Naya's hands trembled. She pressed them against her face, like she could block it out, and then she looked at him, really looked. Not like her lover. Not like her fiancé. Like something unraveling before her eyes. But we love each other, she whispered. We were planning forever. I know, he said. That's why I need us to take a test. Just to be sure. Silence stretched, and then she nodded, just once, because what else could they do? They sat in silence, side by side, on the edge of the clinic's waiting room couch. It was too soft for such a brutal morning. Naya's fingers were clenched around a tissue. Not because she was crying, she felt too numb to cry. But because her hands didn't know where else to go. Dammy hadn't said much since they walked in. He just filled the form, nodded when the nurse called their names, and let her in like it was any other appointment. Like they were here for a vaccine. A checkup. Not. This, the technician was kind. Too kind. He explained the process gently, asked them to swab the insides of their cheeks, sealed the samples like it was nothing more than routine, but it wasn't routine. It was the moment their future might turn into something unrecognizable. When it was done, they stepped back outside into the harsh noon light. Naya blinked up at the sky, trying to ground herself. The air felt thick, so, she said, her voice thin. What now? We wait, Dammy said, for how long? 3 to 5 days. She nodded. Looked at him, you've barely spoken to me in weeks, I'm talking now. She bit down a sob. Do you believe it? That we could be siblings? I don't know what I believe, he said, quietly. But if there's even a chance, Naya. We have to know. She folded her arms, bracing against the wind. And if we are? What happens then? Dammy's jaw tightened. I don't know what I'll do, Naya. Silence fell again. It wasn't peaceful. It ached. She didn't reach for his hand. He didn't offer. They stood like strangers with too much history, too much love, and now, too much to lose. And in that quiet space, between hope and devastation, all they could do was wait. Dammy hadn't spoken much since they booked the test, not to Naya. Not to his mother who came visiting. The house felt like a prison now. Every clock tick was a judgment. He found her at the dining table that evening, curled into herself, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea gone cold. She didn't even look up when he entered. I couldn't sleep, he said. I didn't expect you to. Her voice was hoarse. She looked like she'd aged in days. He hesitated by the doorway. You haven't asked me how I'm holding up. She finally met his eyes, and what he saw there, guilt, shame, devastation, made his breath hitch. I'm scared to ask, she whispered. He walked to the table and sat across from her. The silence between them pulsed with grief. You're sure, Mom? A whisper. Barely a sound. She didn't misunderstand. Her mouth trembled. I loved Cole. He was the man I wanted to marry. The man I dreamed of raising you with. But he left. Before I knew I was pregnant. And I tried to find him. I did. But he was already gone. So that's it. His voice was too calm for what he was feeling. You built a truth around love and distance and filled in the blanks. She couldn't answer. I love her, he said, and that was the most honest thing he'd said in days. I've never felt anything like this. And now we might be siblings. Tears finally slipped down her cheeks. I'm sorry. She whispered. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. If I had known. If I'd gotten to Cole, if he'd known you were his. Dammy stood abruptly. It's okay. It's not. I just wanted to hear you say it. That you're sure. He walked out of the room. Dammy didn't answer her call that night. Naya called again. And again, no reply, a knot of worry twisted in her chest. She told herself he just needed space, that the conversation with his mother had gone badly and he was trying to process it. Across town, Dammy sat in his dark bedroom, the silence clawing at him. He couldn't stop replaying her words. I never doubted it, Dammy. Cole is your father. There was no room left to hope. No space for loopholes or soft what-ifs. He loved his sister. Everything in him broke under the weight of that truth, so he opened the drawer. Pulled out the bottle. It was cowardly. He knew that. But he wasn't thinking about bravery. He was thinking about erasing the shame. The pain, the confusion eating him alive. His hands were steady. Too steady. He took the pills one by one until the world blurred into silence. His mother found him around midnight. The glass was shattered on the floor, his phone face down, the room heavy with something she couldn't name until she touched him. The scream that tore from her chest could have cracked stone. When Naya got to the hospital, her throat burned from crying. The receptionist couldn't find his name at first. When she finally did, the words came out sharp and clinical, stabilized, but still unconscious. They're monitoring him closely. She sat in the hallway in her hoodie, arms wrapped around herself. The weight of not knowing, whether he'd live, whether they were siblings, whether anything made sense anymore, was unbearable. His mother was inside, pacing like she couldn't stop moving or she'd collapse. She caught Naya's eye once. Just once. And the pain there was enough to silence them both. They stayed like that until dawn, together but apart, grief swirling in every breath. The next morning, when the doctor finally said he's awake, Naya didn't rush in. Now that she knew that he was fine, she went to the lab where they had taken their samples to get their result. Naya hadn't slept. Not really. She sat in the hospital's private lounge, a sealed envelope in her hands. The lab technician had offered a polite, curious smile when she collected it, but Naya hadn't returned it. She couldn't. Not with her heart drumming loud and fast, like her body already knew what it would read. She stared at it for what felt like hours. When she finally stood, her legs were numb. Dammy's room was quiet when she entered. He wasn't asleep, just lying still, like someone trying to disappear into the bed. His mother sat by the window, her eyes red-rimmed and empty. She didn't look at Naya. Hadn't looked at her since the night before. The shame was too thick between them. Naya walked to the bed. No preamble. No delay. I have the result, she said softly. Dammy turned his head, his gaze finding hers. You opened it? No. I wanted to do it with you. She handed him the envelope, but he just looked at it like it might explode, so she took a breath, tore the seal, and pulled the paper out. The words didn't register at first, medical language, test identifiers, but then her eyes found it, no biological relationship detected. She blinked. Then blinked again, her fingers trembled, the paper rattling softly. Dammy. Her voice cracked. You're not his son. He didn't respond. She stepped closer, kneeling by his bed, pressing the paper into his hands. You're not my brother, Dammy. The test is negative. A beat passed, then another. His mother finally turned to face them, confusion thick in her brows. What? What are you saying? Naya handed her the paper, her fingers still cold. He's not Cole's son. The DNA doesn't match. We're not related. Silence. Dammy's mother read the results slowly, like the truth could only sink in one letter at a time. Her hand flew to her mouth. Her shoulders shook, but no tears came at first. Just the sound of her breathing changing, gasping, choking, as realization unspooled. No. That can't be right, she whispered. Cole. I was so sure, then suddenly, her body folded forward and she sobbed. Full, heart-wrenching sobs that tore through the sterile room. I didn't even think. That night, her head dropped into her hands. After we ended things, I was broken. I slept with someone I didn't know. Just once. I never even thought to question. She looked at her son, eyes wide, horrified. Dammy, I didn't know. I would never, but Dammy reached for her hand. Weak, trembling, but steady. It's okay, he said hoarsely. You didn't know. But now. We do. He turned to Naya. The quiet between them wasn't grief anymore, it was relief. Trembling, exhausted, wide-eyed relief. They weren't related, they weren't doomed, the pain hadn't vanished, but the wall had. She leaned forward and rested her forehead against his breath hitched. I thought I lost you, he whispered. You didn't, she said. The hospital room smelled faintly of antiseptic and rain. A light drizzle blurred the windows, turning the cityscape beyond into a soft watercolor. Dammy was sitting up now, color returning to his face, though his eyes still carried the weight of what he'd come through. Naya sat beside him, her fingers loosely woven through his. Neither of them had said much since the result came in. There was no need, his mother had left earlier that morning. She'd asked for time, and Naya understood. She was grieving the certainty she had clung to all her son's life, the version of their past she thought was true. And now, she'd have to live with the knowledge that her pain had birthed a lie, however unintentional. Dammy squeezed Naya's hand. You stayed. Of course I did. You could have walked away when I told you. He broke off. Shame still flickered behind his eyes, shadowed and sore. I was ready to give up. She turned to face him fully, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. You were hurting. I was too. But Dammy, love doesn't disappear just because it gets hit by a storm. His jaw tightened. He looked away, blinked fast. I thought I'd never see you again. That night, before I kept thinking, this is it. I ruined us. I ruined everything. No, she said gently. Life tried to ruin us. But we're still here. They stayed like that, quiet and close, until a nurse knocked and wheeled in a breakfast tray neither of them touched. When the nurse left, Dammy let out a small laugh. You realize we've been through more than most married couples. She smiled. Well, at least we know our vows won't be hollow. Do you still want that? He asked. Marriage? Naya looked at him, and smiled. Despite the hospital gown and despite the shadows under his eyes, she saw the man she fell in love with. Brave. Tender. Real, yes, she said softly. I do. Then he exhaled, slow, shaky, but full of something bright, hope.